Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the patience. There's a small lag by 2 minutes, but we're good to start. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to all the participants and speakers from India, and a warm welcome to participants from and speakers from Canada. My name is Ganga. I've been part of the core team and now a mentor in a residence at Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, also called SINE at IIT Bombay. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming each one of you to the Indo-Canadian Entrepreneurship Exchange 2021, an initiative between IIT Bombay and University of Toronto and actively partnered by Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It has been well accepted that the important enabler for a sustainable startup ecosystem in any economy for promoting innovation is inclusive entrepreneurship. The key driver behind this being co-creation and collaboration amongst all stakeholders across geographies, economies, social cultural backgrounds, and technologies. Today's event is a step in that direction. The significance of the collaboration between University of Toronto and IIT Bombay is to create an inclusive ecosystem by partnering so that the best is available to the startup ecosystem in both economies. ICEE shall introduce students, innovators, and entrepreneurs from India and Canada to seek opportunities across Indian and Canadian entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems. The program will support budding entrepreneurs, collaboration for innovation and entrepreneurship, and establish a strong two-way innovation talent pipeline. ICEE proposes to feature a series of workshops and thought leadership events on virtual mode to begin with. So ladies and gentlemen, for the next 120 odd minutes, you will witness some very insightful discussions from renowned practitioners, esteemed speakers, and experts from both the countries. To begin with, I welcome Professor Amit Agarwal from IIT Bombay. Professor Amit Agarwal obtained BTech from IIT Kanpur and PhD from the University of Delaware, USA. He also worked at Tata Motors, Pune, and as a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Newcastle, Australia. Professor Amit Agarwal is currently Dean of International Relations at IIT Bombay and Institute Chair Professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. The International Relations at IIT Bombay oversees and coordinates the international activities in the campus. This office facilitates opportunities for students of the partnered universities to visit campuses and learn from the ecosystem. Professor Amit Agarwal is well known for his research in the fields of fluid mechanics and heat transfer using theoretical, experimental, and simulation tools. His research problems are drawn mainly from the areas of microfluids and turbulent flows. He is currently working on the problem of blood plasma separation at the microscale. Some of his technologies which has been developed have already been commercialized. His work has appeared in cover page of many technical journals of repute, such as Journal of Fluid Mechanics. I request Professor Amit Agarwal to address the virtual gathering with his opening remarks and on the ITB ecosystem. Over to you, Professor Amit Agarwal. Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Ganga, for the kind introduction. It's really a pleasure for me to be here and to be giving these opening comments. Let me start by saying that I would like to say a warm welcome, good evening to all the participants who are joining from Mumbai, who are in Mumbai, and good morning to everybody who's joining from Toronto. And it's really nice to see this collaborative Indo-Canadian Startup Exposure Program, which I believe would give good exposure to students and all the participating companies on both the sides. So, of course, this program is happening between IIT Bombay and University of Toronto, and we have a very active collaboration and partnership with the University of Toronto. We have a very active MOU. And it's of course I'm happy to see this concrete activity happening as part of this MOU. So IIT Bombay does give a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurial activities, and these activities have been rapidly growing in the institute for the past few years. And the institute is actually growing in several spheres, be it number of students, the infrastructure, the research facilities in the institute. So for example, we have more than 12,000 students which are there in the institute. And very large percentage of them, approximately 60% of them are postgraduate students who are there in our programs. And we have more than 3,200 PhD students on campus. We have more than 200 postdoctoral fellows which are there on the campus. So this institute has really changed its flavor from a high quality undergraduate school to something which is a world-class research institute with modern facilities and so on. So the institute has invested heavily and by way of drawing projects from various agencies, and we have state-of-the-art research facilities which are there, and we have recently added several uh, infrastructure in terms of buildings, building research parks, for example, and modernizing um, the the hostel facilities and so on. So I think there has been a lot of activities, a lot of growth which has happened in the institute in all these spheres. And we continuously add new research centers which are in the upcoming areas. For example, we have recently have a center in machine learning and data sciences. We have upcoming center in digital healthcare, in quantum technologies, and so on. So these are there to augment the already very good, very well running centers. For example, we have centers of climate studies, we have center of BETEC, and then Center for Policy Studies. So these are the centers which are already doing very well, and these new centers which are highly interdisciplinary in nature and also catering to some of the modern upcoming fields are what we sort of hope to cater to through these centers. We also have the SITE Center for Entrepreneurship, which was funded by one of the alumnus. And the idea is that here we expose our students and to explore paths for converting their ideas into something which is marketable. So the institute also places a lot of emphasis on patenting, licensing of the technologies which are being developed in the institute. And we have been patenting at least 120 plus patents every year for the last few years. And last year, I sort of heard that there is a huge jump in the number of patents, although I don't know the exact numbers. But there has been a huge jump in the numbers that have happened over the years. So, of course, some of these patents do get converted into companies and startups. And of course, SINE is through SINE, these companies are taken forward. And through SINE, I understand there have been 174 startups that have been incubated in SINE since Science was founded in 2004. So because of which, I mean, this large number of companies with a very large percentage of success, which is coming out from SINE, some of the newspapers essentially call us as the Powai value. So that's a good thing, a good sort of adjective to be described with. Now, of course, I look after the international relations office, and we place a lot of emphasis or a lot of value on international partnerships. And we have several activities going on in the domain of international engagement. We have the ITB Monash Research Academy, where more than 175 PhD degrees have been awarded, which makes it the largest such academy anywhere in the world. We also have several other joint degrees, and we encourage our students to go for exchange and so on. And all these activities have actually something which have benefited a large number of students, and these are something which have been very well received by the students as well as the partner institutes and so on. So with the University of Toronto, we have had joint research workshops in the past, and several research projects are being written up is what I understand. And I think this event will provide a soft landing for companies which have been incubated in Canada. So they may, that will help them find fresh grounds and fresh opportunities in Canada, and of course, vice versa. So I think this would be, this is something that we would look forward to for the success of this event. And I would really like to congratulate the organizing team, Mr. Santosh, Koini, Karan, and everybody else who are there in SINE who have been working. And I wish a grand success to this event. So thank you again for having me, and I'm sure that this event will lead to new partnerships and new benefits to everybody on both sides. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor Amit, for this thought-provoking insights. We surely are very inspired about doing more from SINE as well. Thank you so much. Now I welcome Dr. Derek Newton from University of Toronto. Dr. Newton completed his PhD in molecular biology at the University of Toronto, as well as MSc and BSc in biochemistry from the University of Waterloo. Dr. Derek Newton's currently the Assistant Vice President, Innovation, Partnership and Entrepreneurship at the Innovation Partnership Office. This office helps build successful partnerships between industry and the UOFT research community and manages the university's portfolio of intellectual property. Dr. Newton has held previous senior roles at Western University, where he served as director of the Office of Research Development and Services and the Office of Research Ethics. He also worked at a large biotechnology funding organization and a boutique consulting specializing in biotechnology. I request Dr. Derek Newton to share his opening remarks and share some more insights on the University of Toronto. Before I hand over the floor to Dr. Derek, request the participants to write their questions in the Q&A box below the screen. Our team will take it up with the speakers at the appropriate time. Over to you, Dr. Newton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good morning to everyone joining us from Toronto, and good evening to everyone from India. On behalf of the University of Toronto, the Vice President Research Innovation, University of Toronto Entrepreneurship, and the Office of the Vice President International, I welcome everyone to this exciting event. Before we begin, I would wish to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and learn on this land. The University of Toronto is thrilled to be partnering with IIT Bombay and the Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship on this exciting initiative. We would like to thank all of today's speakers for generously volunteering their time to share experience and insights, and to everyone attending today's event across multiple continents. Today's speaker series is part of a much larger objective to build stronger bridges between our respective institutions, our two cities, and our nations for the mutual benefit of students, entrepreneurs, and startups. The Indo-Canadian Entrepreneurship Exchange Program will introduce young innovators to opportunities across Indian and Canadian entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems. This initiative looks to the future and will feature in-person exchanges in Toronto and Bombay, where each partner can showcase their vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystems. But of course, today, our thoughts and our hearts are with our friends and colleagues in India, who we know are suffering through the current wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm pleased to present some information on the University of Toronto ecosystem. And so I will share my screen. And I hope that is working. One second.
Dr. Derek, we cannot see your screen yet.
Okay, let me Let me try to share again. Is this working?
Now we see it, Derek.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So the University of Toronto is the place for innovation, and we are Canada's leading engine for research startups. We are based in the center of the city of Toronto and are a historic institution founded in 1827 here in Canada. We have since grown to 3 campuses spanning the Greater Toronto area, with spaces in Mississauga, Scarborough, and of course in the downtown area. We are now affiliated with 9 hospitals and form one of the largest clinical and biotechnology clusters in North America. The University of Toronto is a globally ranked institution, with our rankings continue to rise. In general, we are a top 25 institution in the world based on our academic, teaching, and research rankings, including a prestigious National Taiwan University ranking, which places us 3rd in the world based on our research and research outputs. University of Toronto is ranked is a comprehensive university and ranked across multiple subjects from engineering, computer science, education, nursing, medicine, and beyond, and of course engineering as well, in the company of Berkeley, Harvard, Cambridge, and Oxford. The University of Toronto has a wonderful legacy of creating innovative breakthroughs that have changed history and changed innovation around the world. This year, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the discovery of insulin, which continues to save lives and promote and support folks with diabetes around the world. Discoveries from the pacemaker to stem cells to nerve cell transplant and the skin cell printer are also discoveries from the University of Toronto, which continue to improve human health around the world. University of Toronto also ranks among the top 10 university business managed incubators around the world, and 1st in the world for industry and innovation infrastructure by Times Higher Education. In the last 10 years, our startups have created, our entrepreneurs have created more than 500 startups and secured more than $1.5 billion in investment. In the last 10 years, we filed over 1,000 patent applications, and we're a leader among North American universities for creating research-based startups based on our research outputs, IP, and creating license and options as we look to get research knowledge into the economic markets and opportunities. Recently, we've seen tremendous growth in our startups as they secure capital, growing from 175 million secured from our cumulative startups in 2016 to over $500 million raised in 2021. This is an exciting trajectory, which we hope and expect will continue through this partnership. The University of Toronto has deep strengths across multiple domains. The City of Toronto is home to Canada's global financial centers. We have wonderful research in cybersecurity, working with many of the world's top leading financial institutions. We also just launched an artificial intelligence and advanced manufacturing, advanced materials center. We have wonderful initiatives in clean tech and developing new materials to help propel discoveries around the world. We're a leader in genomics with many of our hospitals and creating genomic medicine and combining genomics and AI. University of Toronto was home to the discovery of stem cells and stem cell medicine, and recently was the recipient of one of the largest grants in Canadian history, $115 million in regenerative medicine and commercialization in these companies, in these areas. We also recently created Notch Therapeutics, which raised $85 million. University of Toronto and the City of Toronto has become an exciting cluster in artificial intelligence and machine learning, starting in the 1980s with Dr. Jeff Hinton's discoveries in neural networks and deep learning. The University of Toronto continues to be a global center in artificial intelligence. Companies from around the world have opened research labs here in Toronto, working with our researchers and our students, and we've launched numerous startups in the area. In fact, many leading artificial intelligence initiatives from around the world have been led from individuals from the University of Toronto. Some of them are shown here on this slide, and this really speaks to the strength of the artificial intelligence community and our researchers here at the University of Toronto who go on to do world-leading initiatives in this area. The University of Toronto Innovation Ecosystem has grown and expanded wonderfully over the last several years. This is a map of the city of Toronto. I mentioned that there's 3 campuses to the east and west and the center campus in the middle. We've created what I think is one of the most comprehensive systems to support entrepreneurs of any university. We have initiatives that are focused on computer science, on healthcare, on educational technologies. For University of Toronto students, regardless of which campus they're located on or what subject they're studying, there's a program that they can access to help them turn their ideas into companies, to help them meet mentors, to help them meet investors. And we certainly look forward to opening all of these programs to our partners from India. Part of what we've been growing and developing here at the University of Toronto is new spaces dedicated to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. We recently opened OnRamp, a 15,000 square foot collaboration center in the Banting building. This provides dedicated space for our students and startups. Last several years, we've grown to over 300 members who make use of the space to meet with investors, make business connections, start their companies. And we've hosted over typically 100 events per year, bringing in investors and helping our companies learn from exciting speakers who come back and excite and engage our entrepreneurial community. The University of Toronto continues to build global linkages to help our entrepreneurship community. We've created superhighways with the National University of Singapore and in Israel to create connections for our students to learn and interact and prepare for markets in other parts of the world. The center, our U of T Center with Bombay, creates opportunities to work with Tata Trust and other partners to develop new innovations. We've also engaged with the MasterCard Foundation to create new opportunities in Africa, working with some of our partners here at the University of Toronto, the Bridge, iCube, and our Health Innovation Center. We've also engaged with San Francisco and the Bay Area and New York through membership through the C100 initiative here in Canada. But we don't stop there. Here at the University of Toronto, we're now building an exciting new facility dedicated to entrepreneurship and innovation. That lower tower of this 2-tower structure is currently under construction. It will be the new home of University of Toronto Entrepreneurship. It will house spaces for companies, for presentations, for investors to come and meet with our innovators. There'll be spaces for our companies as they grow from a 1 to 2 to 3 person operation to a 10-person company to a 150-person company. The second tower, which is currently in the planning development, will be more biomedically focused. And so the first tower, which will have a focus on artificial intelligence and biomedical engineering in the second tower, we think brings together the University of Toronto's global strengths in this area. And we're certainly going to be welcoming our entrepreneurs and startups into these areas along with the investors. And we would look forward to seeing this building as a focal point to the engagement with India. As I mentioned, this is going to combine our great strength in biomedical and artificial intelligence. It's going to connect the University of Toronto to local and global partners, investors, and government, and expand the opportunities for our students. So with that, I want to thank you for providing this overview of the University of Toronto and our innovation ecosystems, and I look forward to the conversations throughout the day.
Thank you, Dr. Derek Newton, for the truly inspiring information. Very excited to be associated with one of the best universities in the world, especially in the space of entrepreneurship. Now I welcome Professor Santosh Garpure, our very own professor in charge of Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, SINE. Professor Garpure graduated with a MSc degree from IIT Bombay and obtained a PhD from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He held a postdoctoral position at Indiana University, Bloomington, USA. Professor Santosh Garpure is a faculty in charge of SINE and professor at the Department of Chemistry, IIT Bombay. As a faculty in charge, he's been playing a critical role of giving strategic guidance in helping SINE achieve its vision and the ITB startup ecosystem. His perspective on applied research goes beyond labs through his proactive collaboration with industry partners. This has immensely helped SINE. Professor Garpure's research focuses on organic chemistry pertaining to natural and unnatural product synthesis and developing new synthetic methodologies. Professor Garpure, to his credit, has many achievements for his work. To name a few, he is a recipient of INSA Medal for Young Scientists awarded by Indian National Science Academy, New Delhi. He also has been recently invited to become a fellow of Royal Society of Chemistry through their Leaders in the Field scheme. May I call upon Professor Garpure to speak a few words about SINE. Over to you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ganga, for those kind words of introduction. Good evening to all the participants from India and good morning to all those who are joining from Canada. It's my particular pleasure to kind of introduce SINE in this particular event that we have earmarked for kickstarting this collaborative effort between our two great institutions. Professor Agarwal already talked about IIT Bombay, what we consist of. So what I thought is I will give you a little bit of a flavor of what SINE is and what SINE's activities are. So Karan, can we have the presentation? Yeah. So SINE is acronym for Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We are technology business incubator, not-for-profit society of IIT Bombay. SINE was incorporated in 2004 in the present form, though I must say that it started at the turn of the century after the dot-com boom and then bust. So it's very interesting journey of SINE. We are basically here in IIT Bombay to foster the ecosystem of entrepreneurship. The main idea is to translate the IP which is generated in the institute into a venture, particularly for the economic growth. That is the main motivation. Wherever you do research and some IP results, you want to translate it for the benefit, financial benefit. But at the same time, coming from an academic background, we also look at the ventures or ideas which may have social impact or which could be of strategic value from our country's perspective. Next. Professor Agarwal already introduced you to the IIT's ecosystem, so I would not repeat that, but just to re-emphasize that IITs which were founded in late 1950s, almost more than 60 years back, today have transformed or metamorphosed themselves from undergraduate institutions to postgraduate institutions where a lot of research is happening. And why I'm emphasizing that particular point is like what Derek pointed out, for entrepreneurship to flourish, you need cutting edge research happening. So you can see that we have a huge number of masters and PhD students who are engaged in research activities. We have good number of postdoctoral fellows and project staff who are working on problems of industrial relevance, not only basic research. Close to 700 faculty members are present in different departments. We have close to 50 departments, either academic units or research centers. So that gives you an idea about vibrant research activities. Obviously, this will have to be supported at different ends. So core research groups in the various departments are also augmented with applied research centers. Various entities are present there. Dean R&D's office, IRCC, helps in licensing and tech transfers, whereas SICE School of Entrepreneurship gives formal entrepreneurship programs. So student can do a minor in entrepreneurship, for example. Obviously, this is also a very vibrant ecosystem for entrepreneurship, wherein students themselves are involved through various bodies like e-cells and e-clubs, who keep having a lot of activities promoting entrepreneurship in our ecosystem at large. Next. So what IIT gives is not just, what SINE gives is not just IIT's ecosystem for the startups, but we also connect the startups to the outside or external ecosystem. We give them in connection with the investors, industries, experts, and mentors. They may require all types of support, whether it is designing, manufacturing services, even connection with respect to the startups association within the country and outside. And then programs like the one which we are participating in today, we also provide our startups connect at an international level as well. Next. So this slide essentially summarizes basic activities that SINE is involved in. So we support various stages of startup, right from proof of concept to through startup to the scale up. So pre-incubation, incubation, and accelerator, all the stages of an idea crystallizing into a venture and then finally hitting the markets running. So all those stages we do support our entrepreneurs and startups. We provide them office spaces, access to labs. So all the IIT's research labs are available, accessible for our startups. We help them in terms of funding through various programs and seed grants and connect with investors. Mentoring is one of the activities which is very much part of our program. Networking, which is very, very important, bringing visibility for startups and also helping startups who may not have good idea about legal and finance aspects. So we provide advisory on that as well. Typical support is provided for any startup is for the duration of about 3 years. Next. And this is the impact of SINE over the last 17 years or so. We have incubated about 182 startups up until now. So you will see that between the time when we discussed with Amit and today, there is already an increase in number, about half a dozen we have added from the time. Why I'm saying this is a very dynamic system, and you keep seeing that numbers change dramatically over the period of time. We have 550 plus entrepreneurs incubated through SINE startups in some way. They have raised good amount of funds. What is important from country's perspective is they have generated employment for 4,300 plus employees basically. There are currently 50 odd companies in SINE. About 80 plus have graduated, 10 companies have merged or acquired, and we had our own share of failures with 40 companies folded. We have 200 plus IP generated through our startups, and this is a very important number. About 1/4 of these are coming from IIT's startups. Majority of our companies are funded, and we are proud that SINE's contribution, if I were to say that for every 1 rupee that we invest in these startups, they are able to raise more than 100 rupees of external funding, is how the value addition that SINE essentially does. And like I mentioned, that a good part of the portfolio is involved in areas which can have social impact. So that is our way of giving back to the society, not just focusing on the economic growth of a venture creation from an IP basically. Yeah, next. This is not possible on a standalone basis for SINE. So obviously we have a lot of collaboration, not just IIT ecosystem, like I said, but external ecosystem. There are government bodies, Department of Science and Technology, or Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, or METI as we call it, and programs of DBT through BIRAC. We are partners with many of these government initiatives which provide funding for startup related activities. We are also associated with a lot of corporates through various programs, and we also have international collaboration where we are part of one such initiative in the current program with University of Toronto that we are participating. Of course, we have connections with the investors as well. Next. Specifically with respect to our cross-border program, we had signed this MOU with the University of Toronto in 2019. The idea basically is that we want to provide soft landing support for each other's startups. So Canadian startups hopefully will be able to get soft landing in IIT Bombay and vice versa, wherein our startups can go and be present in Canadian ecosystem through our collaboration with the University of Toronto. We are looking at organizing entrepreneurship exchange programs at a very early stage, entrepreneurs in both the countries, and then also develop innovation talent pipeline through various mentoring activities as well. Like I said, we have many cross-border programs. AIT was one such successful program between India and Switzerland bodies, and we also had collaboration with Taiwanese bodies, wherein we could take our startups and give them exposure to Taiwanese manufacturing ecosystem through one of our program called Plugin, which was in association with Intel. Next. Just to give you a feel, and I will close after that in a minute or so. Many of our startups have global presence. Just a couple of examples here. Gupshup, which very recently joined the Unicorn Club. They are a conversational messaging platform. They started in SINE almost a decade back, and like I said, they became a unicorn with good number of good amount of money raised over the years, and they have 500 plus employees. So one of the very successful startups coming out of SINE. Seclor has moved to Silicon Valley. It's a data-centric security platform. WhiteRabbit.ai is another such company which has a deep tech AI-based platform for early detection of cancer. It's in the medtech space, so to speak. And the founder is basically serial entrepreneur from Valley. So we have a lot of connections. And here a couple more companies, UCDS and iGreen Energies, who are also having international flavor in what they are doing. So this is kind of giving you a glimpse of what SINE is and what SINE does. I'm very excited about this program, and I hope that this particular program that we are all participating in becomes a catalyst for development of strong collaboration between the two universities and two ecosystems at large. And I'm sure that you will get many more ideas as we go further from our partnership, and also from the participants and panelists who are going to expose us more to both ecosystems and what are the opportunities this exciting collaboration provides. This collaboration between not just the universities, but between two great countries is something which we all look forward to, and look forward to this exciting time. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Garpure. It's always a pleasure to listen to you, and you are very fortunate to have you as a professor in charge. Thank you so much. Moving on, it gives me immense pleasure in welcoming the keynote speaker of today's event, Ms. Arvinder Pal. Ms. Arvinder Pal is a business development professional with over 18 years of experience in developing international businesses and driving marketing and sales in Canada, USA, and India. She has cross-sectoral experiences in aviation, transport, supply chain, digital industries, education, and government affairs. Currently, she is a trade commissioner with High Commission of Canada in New Delhi and is responsible for infrastructure and institutional investments. Ms. Arvinder holds BCom Accounting from University of Mumbai, MBA Aviation, Concordia University of Montreal. I request Ms. Arvinder to share her thoughts on Indo-Canadian business culture. Before I hand it over to Ms. Arvinder, request the audience to note that we will have a Q&A round with Ms. Arvinder soon after her talk. So please feel free to write your questions in the Q&A box as the talk proceeds. Over to you, Ms. Arvinder. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ganga, for that introduction. Namaste and bonjour à tous. I also want to thank the University of Toronto and IIT Bombay SINE for coming together to launch this Indo-Canadian Entrepreneurship Exchange Program. Initiatives such as these not only support budding entrepreneurs, but also create the leaders of tomorrow. I am happy to see quite a few of you joining us virtually for this event. And it would be amiss if I do not talk a bit about COVID. This pandemic has challenged us like never before, but on the positive side, we are finding new ways to live our lives in today's new world. And that's innovation. That's the theme for our talk today. A perfect example of this is our virtual event, though I would have loved to have this interaction face-to-face with all of you. What I'll do now is I'll dive right into the Canada-India story. I believe this story is important and needs to be told. Canada and India enjoy a robust and dynamic bilateral relationship founded on deep people-to-people linkages, fast-growing commercial ties, and close alignment on many of the most pressing global and multilateral issues. I will spend some time talking about each of these ties. First, let's look at the people-to-people ties, the rich and diverse ties that exist between our two countries. This special connection has been built over generations. It deserves to be acknowledged. It is what makes business and investment connections possible as well as successful. Business is, after all, built on relationships between people, trust between people, and that's the very foundation of our relationship. I'm sure most of you know somebody in Canada. Approximately 1.4 million Canadians trace their roots back to India. On the other hand, this also means that many Canadians feel at home and feel welcomed in India, which adds to the growth of these linkages and partnerships. Moving on, the second point I would like to address is the economic ties between India and Canada. Our bilateral relationship is now approaching $100 billion, over $61 billion in foreign direct and institutional investments, and approximately $30 billion in services, trade, and education. We've seen phenomenal rise in areas such as technology, water and sanitation, infrastructure, smart cities, energy. Canada's strengths also lie in some other sectors that may be of interest to you as you pursue your entrepreneurship program as part of this initiative. These sectors are aerospace, agriculture and agri-food, automotive and auto components, clean tech, education, defense and security, as well as emerging technologies like AI. Our Canadian companies have been very busy in India. You may have heard that Canadian-designed rail cars from Bombardier Transportation move 5 million people daily in Mumbai and Delhi, and that almost 10 million Indians eat McCain fries every month. Indian mobile carriers like Airtel and Jio use Canadian software that allows millions of subscribers, including me, to manage our accounts every day. And there's Canadian software that is helping Indian taxpayers e-file their income taxes. The success stories are similar on the Indian side. Indian companies are equally invested in Canada. We have Tech Mahindra, who recently opened up a software development center in Vancouver, in addition to an existing facility there. They also announced a strategic partnership and investment in Canada, which is key to the Government of Canada's Superclusters initiative. And I will touch upon this initiative a bit later. India's Paytm, it's a big success story, and we all know this firsthand. Most of us are users of Paytm. Paytm has its largest number of R&D researchers, mainly working on artificial intelligence, based in Canada. Of course, there are many Indian SMEs that have found success there too. These are just some examples of our past successes. And there's so much more that we can do, that you as entrepreneurs can do. Our government has been supporting these initiatives through 8 trade offices across India. It's the 3rd largest trade presence of Canada anywhere in the world. In addition, we also have 6 of the 10 provinces which will be represented in India later this year. And again, the story is similar on the Indian government side. They have a presence across Canada to support similar initiatives. Moving on, the third point I would like to address are the tech ties and the innovation ecosystem. Dr. Newton addressed this, and we also have a panel discussion that will be talking about innovation. And our speaker from SINE also addressed this, but it would not be fair on my part if I do not talk a bit about this ecosystem. Canadian capabilities and expertise in innovation, industrial research and development, and technology commercialization align well with the Indian priorities. These include research mobility, science, education reform, as well as gender parity in STEM. Canada represents only 0.5% of the world's population. Yet, Canadian researchers publish more than 3% of the world's scientific papers. That is significant. And here's a tip. Canada is increasingly recognized as an excellent place to start and scale up global tech startups. So in case you are considering a startup in Canada, way to go. The Toronto-Waterloo corridor. Waterloo is a city that is approximately 120 kilometers from Toronto. In this 120 kilometer stretch alone, we have more than 15,000 tech companies, including 5,000 plus startups, and nearly 300,000 employees in high-tech industries. Coming back to Toronto, it has the highest concentration of AI startup companies anywhere in the world. And in all this, the Canadian government continues to be a key supporter of innovation. A great example is the Innovation Superclusters Initiative. Out here, the government has invested $950 million to support leading companies who choose to innovate in Canada through collaborative partnerships with academia and government. And these superclusters are based across sectors. They focus on ocean technologies, AI-driven supply chain, advanced manufacturing, protein industries, and digital technology. Again, technology firms from both Canada and India are also jointly developing solutions in data security, enterprise software, and telecommunications. Lastly, it will be amiss when I talk about innovation and R&D and not mention the Canadian International Innovation Program, also known as CIIP. It awards up to $1 million per year for joint Canada-India industrial research and development projects. The fourth point I would like to address are the education ties between India and Canada. At the beginning of 2020, more than 220,000 Indian students chose Canada for their higher education. In fact, the largest cohort of foreign students in Canada comes from India. Over 550 agreements exist between Canada and India that foster joint research, student mobility, and faculty exchanges like ICEE. Both our countries take pride in our centers of excellence. In Canada, just to name a few, we have McGill University and University of Montreal, which have the highest concentration of researchers and students of deep learning in the world. The University of Toronto has Canada's #1 computer science department and is among the top 5 universities worldwide for fostering startups. On the Indian side, we have the Indian Institutes of Technology, Indian Institutes of Management, as well as the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, some of the premier institutions out here. Now to go to the last point I would like to address is access to Canada. Every time that we speak at any of the events as Government of Canada representatives, it is helpful for us to talk a bit about immigration. And another reason why Canada is viewed as a hotbed for talent and innovation is its open immigration policy and acceptance of diversity. Diversity is very important to us. 1 in 5 Canadians is now foreign born. Toronto is the world's most multicultural and diverse city. And I'd like to share some interesting stats here. 51% of the population in Toronto is foreign born, 230 different nationalities. And amongst themselves, they speak 200 different languages. And these are the people who call Toronto home. To quote Prime Minister Trudeau, Canada has succeeded culturally, politically, economically because of our diversity, not in spite of it. You will find that everyone is respected and welcomed in Canada, irrespective of what their gender, racial, ethnic, cultural, linguistic, or religious identities are. Students have an opportunity to apply for permanent residence through various programs that come under Express Entry. These could be Canadian Experience Class or the Federal Skilled Worker Program. And the last point I would like to make under immigration is it would be of relevance to our audience here today, which is Canada's Startup Visa Program. What started off as just a test program has in fact evolved over the years and is one of the most popular programs across the world for startups that are looking at setting up operations in Canada and exploring that ecosystem. Under this program, it's immigrant entrepreneurs with skills and potentials to build innovative business in Canada qualify. Of course, there are certain criteria to be met. And all you need is to partner up with a Canada-based incubator, a business incubator, an angel investor, or a VC firm. To recap, we looked at people-to-people ties, economic ties, tech ties, education ties, and access to Canada. Majority of these examples are from the pre-COVID era, or as I call it, circa early 2020. As you embark upon the exciting path of entrepreneurship, it is imperative to understand things in light of COVID-19, its implications, opportunities, as well as collaborations. For most of us, I know for sure for me, the past year has been the most challenging year of our lives. We have seen exports contract 24%, investments have slowed down, student and worker mobility has been interrupted, and people-to-people ties have been disrupted. We've been far away from airports and airplanes. We're sitting in the comfort of our homes to stay safe, active, and engaged. And while we sit at our dining tables, sometimes with family members around, and that may probably well be the case this evening too with some of you, and we are trying to conduct a business or attend webinars, we are innovating. Companies across the globe have found new ways of doing businesses, and others have pivoted to address new opportunities, many of which were in support of the battle against COVID-19. We've seen these stories in India, in Canada, across the globe. Companies have switched production to start producing PPEs for export. They're trying to ensure supply chains remain active for essential services. Throughout this challenging period, the Canada-India collaborations have also evolved and progressed, and they still are. Last year, we helped 30,000 Canadians return home after international flights in India were cancelled. And this was during a strict lockdown. Vaccines were developed from scratch, including one indigenously in India. And now, a made in India vaccine is being used in Canada as well. These are perfect examples of ties that connect our two countries. As the lockdown norms ease and we slowly return to the way things were, let's be mindful, many things have changed forever and they will never be the way things were. They will be the way things are to come. And there are more challenges around the corner. We need to adapt to the new global reality of restricted travel. It is scary, but it's something that we will need to look at and adapt. And our economies will also have to find that balance where we can be self-sufficient. Rather, as we say over here, is Atmanirbhar, while also celebrating our important partnerships and collaborations. There are infinite opportunities that we hope entrepreneurs such as yourselves will tap into. With some final thoughts, let me circle back to you, students, researchers, and early stage entrepreneurs. We live in an interconnected world with a growing focus on becoming more globally minded, resilient, and empathetic. It's the current situation that has taught us all of these skills, and probably they will be something that will take us a long way in the future. International exchange programs such as ICEE offer unmatched opportunities and help students to be globally aware and globally proficient. They create an ecosystem where different cultures, backgrounds, languages intersect, and this diversity goes a long way in creating global citizens. Paraphrasing Goethe, who said that the person who speaks only one language sees the world with one eye. Thinking about education in a single frame is seeing the world with one eye. A multidimensional model like this exchange program thus helps capture the gestalt of the education system and provides depth, perspective, and a fuller understanding. I wish this for each one of you who is looking at this program and is looking at basically exploring opportunities outside of their comfort zone. I, for one, have been fortunate to experience this firsthand, having lived, studied, and worked in 3 countries, including Canada and India. To conclude, Canada and India have a long history together, and I believe that an even brighter future lies ahead as all of you become a part of this growth story. Whether you decide to stay in your host country or return to your home country, be it Canada or India, as a student or as an entrepreneur, you will be an important driver in further strengthening the already strong ties between Canada and India. May the force be with you. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Arminder, for the insightful information. A lot of it was new to us. Thank you so much. we might just have time for a question or two. So while the participants are sharing in their questions, I might just want to start off with one. So you did speak about, the opportunities an Indian entrepreneur can actually, is available in Canada. So there's a question which says that what support can an Indian entrepreneur get while starting a business in Canada? You did talk about it, but are there some more pointers you'd like to kind of leave the participants with?
Absolutely. So we have an entire team dedicated in India that focuses on Indian companies, Indian entrepreneurs who are looking at setting up operations in Canada. And we basically handhold them right from, guiding them with tips on how to do business in Canada. We share materials with them. We share resources about, besides doing business in Canada, about the legal implications. We connect them with service providers, be it lawyers, be it accountants. And at the same time, we would share with them information about all kinds of tax credits that they can expect. Just to mention here that since we're talking about innovation, and I did focus quite a bit on research and development, most of our incentives and most of the, I would say, tax credits that Canada offers are focused on companies that are looking at R&D or that have a technology angle to them. So we would do that. We would make the introductions to, if they know which province they want to set up in. We have 10 provinces. If they know what city they want to set up in. So let's take an example of Ontario. So in the province of Ontario, I would introduce them to the Ontario representatives. And if they are very clear that they are looking at, Toronto specifically, we go one level down and then introduce them to the city representatives. If they decide that, okay, I would like to go down one step further and pick up, Mississauga or Brampton or Scarborough, we would then introduce them to the reps of these particular municipalities. And again, the Startup Visa is a very robust program that the government of Canada has introduced, where you actually, if you go with the business incubator route, you need to have a business. And you can be a part of, the business incubator ecosystem over there. All you need from the incubator is a letter of support. Of course, you need to meet the requirements of having a business that qualifies. And at the same time, it's about the ownership, a specific percentage. You should have sufficient funds to settle in Canada. So these are some ways in which we would be able to support. Once they become a Canadian company is when they will be able to actually take advantage of all the tax credits that I have been talking about. And there are several government-funded programs.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think there are a lot of interesting, informative points which you covered. So I think there are a few more questions. So I was just wondering if we can actually, share those questions offline with you so that, probably they can get a better detailed answers to it. Is that
absolutely? Okay? Absolutely. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time. So thank you so much, Ms. Arvinder, for this insightful information about the Indo-Canadian business culture and the opportunities. So as we move along to the most important part of the agenda today, the next in the agenda for today is an insightful discussion by a panelist comprising of experts both from India and Canada. The theme for the discussion today is trends, technologies, time zones, which is typically discovering innovation opportunities for entrepreneurs in India and Canada. The panel today shall be moderated by Dr. Terry Dormano. Dr. Terry would introduce the panel as she takes on the moderation. So just to give a brief introduction about Dr. Terry is a senior advisor, international relations at the National Research Council Canada, supporting excellence in research and innovation, a former director of Ontario's International Missions Secretariat. Dr. Romano was stationed in India for 2.5 years as the Government of Ontario's representative, heading offices in New Delhi and Mumbai. Dr. Romano also spent a decade in Germany, leading the Ontario office in Munich. In her roles, Dr. Romano led teams representing Ontario's trade and investment interests by attracting investments, generating new business opportunities for Ontario companies, fostering research collaboration, and raising Ontario's profile. Fluent in English, French, German, and Italian, Dr. Romano holds a MA from the University of Toronto and a PhD from Yale University. I request Dr. Romano to take over from here for moderating the panel and introducing the panelists. Before I hand over to Dr. Romano, request the audience to note that we shall be having a Q&A round with the panelists soon after the panel discussion is over. Over to you, Dr. Romano. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ganga, for your very kind introduction. And thank you, everyone. Thank you to the organizers. I'm very actually honored to be here with my alma mater, University of Toronto, and the IIT Bombay and the Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. The most exciting part of my work has always been working with young companies and young entrepreneurs. It's a bit unfortunate that I can't see you all in person today, but this is the next best thing until we're able to meet again. Before we start, we'd agreed that the panel would introduce themselves. So before I turn to the panel one by one, I just wanted to mention that we are still looking for questions. And I've noticed that in the Q&A sections, the questions are, if they're very specific, are actually being answered as we go. So I encourage you, even if you're a bit shy, to put in your questions and you'll get a response there. Thank you very much. If we could just turn first to Ajay, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Hi, everyone. My name is Ajay Ramasubramaniam. I'm the founder and CEO of Startup Rezo. We run startup accelerators backed by governments, by corporates, and our own branded programs. Currently, our focus is emerging markets. So running programs across India, Southeast Asia, and Africa, but also fairly strong Canadian ties, given my background earlier having been the CEO for Zone Startups in India, which is an Indo-Canadian venture, and prior to that, as a colleague of Terry at the Ontario government, representing the office in Mumbai. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajay. It's a great pleasure, of course, to see you again. If I can turn now to Devdutt.
Thank you, Terry. My name is Devdutt Shah, and good day to everybody who has joined this session today. Wherever you are in the world, including India and Canada, obviously. I have had a career in India as well as in Canada, amongst other countries. And I'm a big fan of promoting the Indo-Canadian business corridor in both directions. So I'm absolutely delighted to join this panel today. Also a IIT Bombay graduate, so it gives me an extra pleasure to be part of this session today. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much. And over to you, Devashish.
All right, thanks, Terry. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. My name is Devashish. I'm the country head for Wattpad in India. For some of you who may not be aware of Wattpad, it's the world's largest storytelling platform. And we have over 90 million users from all over the world who use our app and website to read and write stories on any theme that is close to them. Moreover, the stories that become popular, we also work with studio partners to adapt them to movies, web series, and TV shows. So sort of a good mix of technology and entertainment is something we work on a day-to-day basis. Previously, I've been part of startups both in India and Canada and have enjoyed working in both the markets. So have been a bit of a close observer on how both the ecosystems have evolved. Personally, I grew up mostly in Gurgaon and Delhi, but I did my undergraduate studies in University of Waterloo, which is Canada. And after that, I also had a stint at University of Toronto. Well, really excited to be here with all the fellow panelists and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much. Sorry, there's a slight delay on my end, I think.
Okay.
Before we start, one of the things that Ganga didn't mention about me is that my field actually is history of medicine. Can people hear me? Okay. And for historians of medicine, epidemics are a very useful field. In fact, they're a very happy field because epidemics kind of show us who we are as societies under stress. And I have to admit, after the last year, I would prefer to return to reading about the histories of pandemics rather than experiencing them. But with a longer view, I think that I can promise you all that all epidemics have passed. going back to antiquity. This one will pass as well. And we look forward really to pivoting, we hope, to, I actually call the time not the early 2020, I call it the before times, but we're looking forward to the after times that we can build better really together. So this is introducing the first set of thoughts that we had for our panelists. We're sitting here now still in the pandemic, both in India and in Canada. And on the other hand, you really represent a long experience of the Canadian-Indian relationship and across different sectors. So as I ask this question, please feel free to pivot either to your longer experience or to the specifics of being pre and post the epidemic. When we look today at the opportunities, the challenges, how do you see that? So either from your personal perspective or from this moment of COVID. And I guess I'll just start back with you going in the reverse order. Devashish.
Sure. I think one thing is very clear that with the current pandemic, we all have, because we're confined in a physical world, we all have started adopting a lot of digital tools in our daily lifestyle, whether that's, deciding on what should we be eating to all the way to how we should be investing our money. So I believe like one of the interesting opportunities is how does digital services are being created for different consumers, especially in India, where the diversity of consumer habits is very broad. I think that's a very interesting field of opportunity, and this could be applied to multiple industries as well. In terms of, I would say challenges, the challenge I personally believe and what I observe around me is the speed of change. Like because it's such a catalyst moment, a lot of people have to change not only their personal lifestyle, but also their professional lifestyle. Like my mother, who is close to 60, she never had taken an online class. And I just know like how last year when she had to do it for the first time, how much of my time was invested in, helping her out with all of those tools. But over the years, she has picked it up pretty well. And now she is self-sufficient with that, right? So that's an interesting thing. And I'm just very excited to see how this transients into, other aspects of her lifestyle as well. Because I believe like a lot of these things would, because they have been around for so long, the pandemic, lockdown and the effect, that a lot of these things would also become a habit for a lot of people and not just like a small short-term skill that they picked up.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to turn now to Devdutt because I'm also a mother close to 60, and I hope you're going to support me in talking about how great we are at pivoting, and our long experience will allow us to react to the situation.
Yeah, no, thank you, Terry. Yeah, no, I think I agree more or less with Devashish. I think my views are a little bit not old-fashioned, but they're grounded more in the reality of my experience with that. COVID has been a tremendous tragedy globally, and we all know that, so no need to repeat too much of that, the sordid experience we've all had personally to some extent. But I do think from a business perspective, this notion that people have got sort of used to or familiar with and therefore hooked to online communication is somewhat misguided. I think humans like to congregate, they like to meet each other, they like to have dinners and meetings and face-to-face. And all of that really promotes a bonding, which is absolutely necessary for business to develop. Here we're talking about India, Canada, half a world away from each other. I don't think we can substitute online meeting and traveling to each other's countries and meeting people face-to-face and getting to know them personally with just a screenshot just above our chest, right? That is not going to lead to business development that is going to be effective. Now, having established relationships through physical travel, one can lessen the need to travel again and again across the oceans through Zoom calls. But I do think that the creativity, the innovation, all of those triggers, the catalysts which lead to cooperation and innovation can happen in the physical world, not in the online world.
Thank you very much. And turning to you, Ajay, maybe you can pick up the themes and talk about what that means for specific startups.
Sure, thank you, Terry. And I would agree to a large degree on the comments that Devashish made and Devdutt, and to your question. So while a lot of things, like Devdutt rightly pointed out, cannot be, when it comes to human to human interaction, cannot be replaced by just having virtual meetings all the time. From a business perspective, and particularly touching upon startups, and because we're talking Canada, India, we're talking cross border, I think one of the things that we have to some degree figured out in the last 12 to 15 months is that the world actually has shrunk. Now, what I mean by that is, and I'm not talking just from a business development perspective. There are a lot of times when you want to scope out an opportunity and you want to explore an opportunity before you make a definite kind of a go, no go kind of a call. And I think by the interaction through the virtual world, I think the cost of making that decision has come down to some degree. And I say this because very recently we concluded a 6-week market access program for growth stage Indian startups who are looking at Canada. And even though the companies were selected through an application-based process and whatnot, I think those 6 weeks, even for the companies which were really ready and thought that, hey, for me to expand in North America, Canada could potentially be a place to soft land in. For a big number of them, they realized what are the challenges and what are the things that they assumed were probably not true, and which allowed them to take a call that, okay, maybe I'm not yet there, I'm not yet ready, unlike what I was thinking. But for a few of them, it just a couple of conversations, and you are actively involved in speaking to a bunch of them. And for several of them, even before midway through the program, they were like, I'm not even interested in attending the remaining 3 or 4 weeks of the program, because the questions I needed to get answered are answered, and I now want to go ahead with the incorporation process without wasting any further time, because the time is now. So and this is an experience that we have not just in the Canada India corridor, but I mean, for us ourselves as a business operating accelerators and innovation programs and entrepreneurship development initiatives, a lot of things have got fast tracked, because what we had planned for later in the Q3 and Q4 of 21, 22, and probably beyond, like markets in Africa and markets in Southeast Asia, because of being able to do a lot of things virtually, for us to kind of identify and set up an outpost of sort, and even hire a person remotely and put that person on the ground, all of that has kind of pretty much got fast tracked. So I mean, I look at us ourselves as a startup which is in the business of enabling startups, but I'm sure that with virtual, for a lot of market or cost of identifying an opportunity, I think in many cases that definitely has come down significantly.
Thank you so much, Ajay. I'm going to turn to a related trend that I think that Ajay's brought up here. So when I was in India and also in Canada, one of the commonalities that we really both have, I think as societies, is that we really like to talk about our successes and kind of celebrate our hard work, which is rightly so, I would agree. But we tend to be a little bit shy about talking about our failures. And I think that we can all admit that we've all failed on occasion. And I think for students and early startups and careers, it's often helpful to hear about mistakes that were made and pitfalls to avoid. So I'm now moving really to the theme of, building a global business. And I wondered if you could speak in turn of some pitfalls to avoid, and if you're willing to share mistakes that you made and learned from. So I'll just turn to you first, Devdutt.
I was afraid you're going to put me on a spot first to answer your question, but I'll try my best. Yeah, so listen, in terms of mistakes and pitfalls, I wish I could recount them sort of very categorically, right? But I think what I could perhaps answer a little bit slightly more differently is to say, what could I have done better, right? Is really to improve everything between Canada and India, I think, at a personal level, right? So just to give some perspective, I was working for Brookfield Asset Management, one of the largest companies in the world, but based in Toronto, as you know, Terry. And 2008, I joined them, and I was the country manager. And my one condition in joining company was I would have to be based in Mumbai or India in order to build the business from scratch, literally, for Brookfield, right? Literally scratch zero. So I'm very satisfied to say today, in hindsight, although I left Brookfield, of course, a few years ago, is that from $0 to roughly $20 billion is the level of investment that Brookfield has been in India, right? And I was a guy who started that way back. Now, if I look at that so-called success story, and there are others as well, at the institutional level, where the failure or the desire for improvement is really at the other end of the spectrum, which is the startup space, right? Which is the technology space, which is where the VCs and the angel investors and family offices and all, that space, I wish somehow I had the ability or the power or persuasion, whatever it is, to convince that whole part of the Canadian sort of ecosystem to back Canadian startup companies, Canadian entrepreneurs to scale up in India, right? And this is a sore this is a big opportunity, I should say, but a sore sort of missing piece in the whole ecosystem here. We have a tremendous validation of the institutional investors from Canada going into India. I mean, we know the story. I won't go into that, but it's approaching $100 billion kind of number. And Brookfield is just one of them, right? CPP, IB, OMERS, well, the names go on, right? But we have complete blank, more or less, at the other spectrum. Now, I don't mean to say complete in the zero sense, but it is in relative terms to the amount of capital we have, financial capital, intellectual capital, everything else that's here, it is not being leveraged enough, right? It is, so that is, it's not a personal mistake, but it's something that I strive to do that. And it needs a lot of support institutionally as well at the government level to enable that to happen. So I think that's sort of one of my, it's been in my bonnet for many years now, yeah.
Thank you very much. And I have to echo, I do think everything begins with the personal. We're very, very excited about the potential of all the Indian students who now really realize what a great destination Canada is. Because I often sat in meetings with Indian executives who talked about their experience in the UK or the US. And I'm sure my future colleagues will look forward to a different conversation where you don't have to explain where Waterloo is relative to Toronto or that Vancouver's on a different coast, right? But I think that interestingly, I find that Indian companies the large companies are aggressive, but the middle-sized ones are also shy. I mean, they're sitting in a big market and they're intimidated by Canada. And of course, our companies are sitting in Canada, intimidated by the distance and the potential large size of the market. And that really is part of our role in government, in economic development, and now you as well in your entrepreneurial role. And I have to say the Brookfield story, though, is one that we do like to tell. And it really is about that generation, and I say generation because I think it is now about 20 years ago, where people really recognized the potential and did in fact achieve a lot, right? So I think that gives us all hope on a smaller level. I don't think we're all going to get $20 billion, but I think that smaller companies can really see that if you work at it, that success is possible. And at that time, honestly, there would have been very, very little support. Devashish, I didn't know if you want to comment as well on pitfalls being between the Indian and the Canadian business environments.
Sure, I can definitely share my perspective, and it's definitely I would say like slightly on the other end of the spectrum from what Dave just mentioned, where so just for context, I work at Wattpad, which is headquartered in Toronto, but we have had a local office in India for about 3 years now. And so we're still early days into establishing our local presence. However, because we are a tech product, the product has been used by millions of users in the country even before we had a local presence, right? So a lot of the, I would say, issues or a lot of the things that we face are at in a different, I would say, through a different lens, because it's still a startup culture. And the type of investment we are trying to make is actually getting more users than investments. So I can share from that perspective. However, the pandemic has also added an additional variable to all our plans. So that is also something I can maybe elaborate on. I would say the key point over here, what we understood is, I think more on the culture side and the time zone difference side. So one thing we have to do as a local team is we have to not only work within our local time zone, but also figure out how do we coordinate with the mothership, which is 9.5 hours away, right? And if you add the daylight savings, then it becomes 10.5 hours away. So those are things that definitely get into the our calendars quite a bit. And the way we handle it is, is having actually depends on the role, but like the solution to that is have like two pockets of deep work. So one in the morning and one in the evening. That is one side. So we do like, instead of 8 hours at a stretch, 4 hours in the morning, and then afternoon is the break, sort of like a siesta, if you may. And then in the evening, there's 4 hours again. On the culture side, I believe because we're still a startup-y culture, like a lot of things are goal-oriented. So it doesn't matter how much time you punch in, but at the end of the day, we all kind of have like the same report card that have we achieved what we had set out in the beginning for. And one interesting angle that we understood is that in a goal-oriented work culture, no matter which geography you're in, it's always the productivity is always in sine wave. So you would have you would always be oscillating your time between planning and execution, and sometimes you are planning heavy, and sometimes you are execution heavy. And with the time zone variable added to it, it becomes even more so interesting that how do you balance the two, right? So I would say like those would be like two areas which I felt I could add to the discussion over here.
Thank you very much. Ajay, I'm going to turn to you, as you can probably figure out by now, but I'm going to ask if you could maybe comment not just about India and Canada, but also the other geographies that you work with. During my time in India, people are often surprised when I talk about Germany, because India in many ways reminds me of Germany and differentiates itself from Canada in the importance of industrial associations, for example, the role of the state governments versus the federal level, as we would say in Canada. And so I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that, or again, anything that you'd like to add to the pre and post-COVID hopes and dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. So the pre and post is one thing, but if I were to kind of talk about the opportunities that exist, but where a lot of folks kind of go wrong, that would be like a separate conversation altogether, trying to bring together like 10, 12 years of a lot of pain points that one comes across. But I think there's a huge untapped opportunity when it comes to, and to the point that Devdutt was making, when it comes to Canada, India, and technology startups. Canada has immense amount of things to offer. I mean, not just as startups, but also from the different incubators, the accelerators that are run privately and stuff. And there is the challenge that a lot of Canadian early stage technology companies face is that, I mean, their ability or keenness to prioritize India. And I'm not just talking of, I mean, trade missions and whatnot. That's kind of okay. But for companies to make that effort, not just being dependent on some kind of subsidy or grant that allows them to make those trips. And over the last 12 years, I can probably, I mean, count the number of companies on like just one palm of mine. I mean, one hand of mine, who make that consistent effort to kind of show up on an ongoing basis. And I think what COVID has done, or what digital has changed in the last 12 months, is that it is now, I mean, for companies who want to understand what the Indian opportunity is, getting to talk with corporates and things like that. I think those opportunities definitely do exist, and I think that's for the reason, that's for, and because of that, I think Federal Affairs Canada is kind of relaunching the CTA program later this year to open up the India opportunities for Canadian companies looking here. On the other hand, when you look at Indian companies or Indian startups which want to look at North America, for them to understand that how or why kind of Canada is a place that they should look at, and which cities. I mean, not just Toronto, but cities, depending on which sector they are focused on, what kind of skill sets or talent that they're focusing on. I think that also requires a little bit of advocacy, or a little bit of more hand-holding for them to understand. But I think over a period of last at least 2-3 years, I can say in the last decade, last 2-3 years, I think there are far many more Indian companies who are aware of very specific hotspots in Canada, where they want to go and where they understand or look at things from a talent standpoint. At the same time, understanding what or who an Indian startup is. So, I mean, gone are the days when most of the companies that would kind of want to take their businesses to Canada would typically be IT services companies and so on. There are a good number of product companies which may or may not have raised funding, which may or may not be kind of like a huge team, might be like a small team of 6 to 8, but the acceptance of those companies, I mean, even during like I said, you were actively involved in the Startup Rich Canada program, but there were a lot of folks who had signed up as mentors who just wouldn't have imagined the 3 companies which actually ended up setting up an office and hiring a couple of people. They would be like, sure, oh, I never expected that company to open up an office in Toronto or hire a couple of people. So the teams might be small, but they might be doing like really bleeding edge or cutting edge work. And the acceptance or understanding what an Indian startup brings to the table, and not just looking at a sales office, but hiring locally and building out a global product from Canada. I think even that perception, a lot of it has to change on the other end. So.
I was muted, I apologize. Thank you very much, Ajay. I'm going to turn now to kind of trends and sectors and where the opportunities are on both sides. And one of the things that I just wanted to highlight, both in the presentations, in all of the presentations actually, and also Arbinder's opening remarks, there was kind of a discussion about how important India and Canada are for manufacturing, for IT. But I think that one of the things that I really like to emphasize is that, you know, a location like Toronto really brings together IT and manufacturing. I mean, these are world centers of both together. And that's something I think that is also being developed in India. But when we talk about digitalization, that's a big potential. And one of the sectors that interestingly hasn't been mentioned is actually agriculture. And agriculture is also very important to Canada. And it's also very high tech. For example, today, I think one of the best markets for drones are in fact farmers. But as well, we do agricultural food products, which is manufacturing like every other. So I just wanted to so those are my 2 cents. And then I wanted to throw it over to the panelists of what trends do you see? And I will start with you, Devashish, having not started with you the last 2 times. Was that clear? Sorry, I think I got a bit cut off there. Your sector trends that you see and the opportunities between India and Canada.
Right. I think if I have to, I mean, across all sectors, right? Like as you mentioned, agriculture is one, but even if you think about healthcare or e-commerce or real estate or any of those things, right? I think my point of view is that what pandemic has provided an opportunity is digitization, and what that has led to is capturing a lot of data are in every segment. So whether that's healthcare being patient data, or whether it's e-commerce being buying trends, or whether that's finances being investment data or savings data, a lot of the data that was earlier not being captured in a comprehensive manner now is being captured, and that leads to a lot of interesting possibilities, right? Specifically, I can see it in healthcare, like with a lot of patient data in India and as well as in other parts of the world, like Canada, I believe was already there. But specifically in India, like with people being comfortable getting healthcare delivered through an online mechanism and recording their, prescriptions or medicinal information and health records in a digital format, it allows a lot of research that could go into it and help figure out interesting healthcare solutions for the geography, right? And for, not only for like common diseases, but also like rare diseases. Because we have the data now, interesting research could go into that and could lead to possible business opportunities in the future. I would say like this common trend of capturing data is something that I personally excites me in all the segments. I work very closely in the entertainment segment, so I have a lot more I would say practical experience over there. But at the same time, I see healthcare was the other industry that came to mind, but I'm sure like this has implications across various fields.
Thank you very much. Ajay, do you have any top sectors, top tips for companies thinking about Canada?
I think I'll break it
Canadian
into
companies thinking about India.
Yeah, sure. I'll break it into 2 parts. I'll break it as industry as well as technology, and recognizing some of the strengths that Canadian talent has. I think the work that is being done, whether across machine learning and artificial intelligence, across different sectors, definitely as a plug from, and having been to one of the sessions which Ajay Agarwal of University of Toronto had hosted at the National Stock Exchange about a year and a half back, and the work that UT does in AI. I think definitely there is huge potential to plug into industry as well as research, and also from different domains perspective. I would think cybersecurity would be one, healthcare would be one, and also agricultural technology or ag tech has picked on big time in the last 2 or 3 years in India. So there also does exist opportunity to bring in stuff into India. Likewise, for Indian companies who might be looking at the other way around, I think looking at things as but building a product in India, but having a beachhead in Canada, which allows them to do cutting edge research and build out global products. I think there does exist a huge opportunity for companies which have the pockets and the resources to do that.
Great. I'm having to have I started to have a slight connection problem there, so I hope that everyone can still hear me. Devdutt, if you could share your insights on the sector trends that you're seeing now in your newish role as an entrepreneurial, I guess, accelerator yourself, catalyst. That's a better word.
Okay. Yeah, this is my favorite question. I was hoping we bring this topic up. So let me just start with one sort of headline, which is I think a preamble to what I'm going to answer your question, right, Terry? This is that the efforts and the programs that the government has in Canada, both at the provincial level and the federal level, are absolutely excellent and necessary, right? And they actually do help a lot. What I would like to add is that the target is not only just the entrepreneurs and the founders here, right? That talent is, of course, here, but there is very little that I'm aware of, at least, that the efforts from the government level agencies are directed towards the investors, and this is Canadian investors, right? So if you think about it, a founder here or a startup company here needs capital. I mean, they've got the ideas, they've got a limited manpower, they're running out crazy trying to make things work, but they need capital, right? And this is where the issue comes in. Canada is not a scale-up market. The US is, India is, right? But the VCs here, the family offices, the HNIs and all this, and they are reluctant to help these companies use India or think of India as a scale-up market. So government efforts to sort of get them comfortable, tell them success stories and enable them, say, yeah, you can finance, you can invest in startup companies and help them go to India as a scale-up opportunity is massive. That will be very, very helpful. So that's kind of the headline statement. Now, within the sectors, I mean, I made a list of probably 15 or 20 companies or sectors, I should say. But let me give you a few examples. It's going to take too much time. But for example, in health sector, right? So one of the biggest problems in India is actually micronutrient deficiency. So iron deficiency, anemia is a huge problem. There's a lot of social implications. There are technologies that are available from U of T and Canada in general that can address this area of micronutrient deficiency. So that's a sector that literally can be used a lot with a lot of impact and can be very rewarding financially as well. Diabetes. India has a huge amount of diabetic population. There are technologies available for detecting early detection of diabetes to prevent amputation of limbs and things like that. These technologies need to be enabled to scale up in India, right? Data is available, AI, there are all kinds of enabling factors. We need the capital to back these entrepreneurs, and that capital comes from the VC sector, broadly speaking, the angels, HNIs, all that, who are not yet convinced, who are not yet willing to take that leap of faith of enabling such companies to go to India. So that's just two examples. Varicose veins, X-ray technologies, a bunch of other things. But clean tech, another sector, right? Circular economy. Plastic waste is a huge problem in India, right? There are companies out of Montreal and Toronto and other areas that have figured out how to recycle the plastic wastage into something that's more useful in the economy. So it's not just chopping up plastic, making new plastic products, it's to reuse them into something that's different in the economy. So that's kind of the, so there are technologies available here, right? Give an example, India is the second largest manufacturer of cement in the world after China. Why? Because it's building so many things. The production, the manufacturing of cement leads to greenhouse gas, CO2 emission in a massive way, right? Now, there are sequestration technologies available for capturing the carbon to minimize the impact of CO2 emission in a country like India. Those technologies are available in Canada as well, right? Carbon Cure is a prime example of that. Where is Carbon Cure in India? They're not, right? How can the government help? How can the investors help such a company, say, go to India, it's a massive scale-up opportunity, right? So we can go on and on, but solar panels, yeah, there are a lot of technologies, inverter technologies for improving the efficiency of solar panels. Smart meters is another huge area. Battery storage, I'm working as a Mars advisor to some companies here to help them, how to deploy battery storage technology in the Indian marketplace. Water, of course. Now, again, the last thing I would say is using AI to predict the spread of infectious disease. This is a very here and now problem with COVID, right? Blue Dot is an example of a company based in Toronto. Now they've got massive recognition, massive implementation, but I don't believe that they are in India yet. They've tried, but they haven't succeeded. How do we help companies like this to make the leap into India and say, use your AI models, which are so accurate, so good of predicting the spread of disease, not just for COVID, but on a continuous basis in a place like India, where there's a huge migrant population going back and forth, as you know very well, right? Workers go from Bihar to Haryana and all that, and the disease is spread clearly. So these are technologies that need to really scale up in India. And lastly, I would say that I would kind of stay away from things like fintech and all that in India, because it's a lot of local companies as well. But insurance tech is an area which is a growth potential, and Canadian companies have been reasonably successful in that sector as well. So there we can go on and on, but I mean, there's a lot of scope. Just about any technology, an idea a Canadian entrepreneur has, because India is so big, it has so many things to solve. It can solve them. It's a question of how do you enable that to happen, and the missing piece is the capital by far, in my view. It's a long answer, but thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, no, thank you. That was super inspiring. And in fact, leads to one of the points that I think is very important and allows us to reinforce the importance of this platform, the new platform that SINE, IIT Bombay and University of Toronto are putting together. Because if we go into any one of your suggestions or ideas, of course, the market is different. The technology challenges are different. The potential financing or commercialization are different. And really, each company requires one-on-one counseling and information. And I think that that's why in the end, we can all sit here at this forum and talk in general, but we need to talk really specifically to each company about their potential and avoiding their pitfalls and their financial really outlook. And so I thank you very much. I think that's a great segue into the question and answer session. And I would like to remind everybody that even if you're feeling a bit shy and you don't want your question to be featured here, that you'll get an individual question and response in the chat. And I'd want to thank everybody who, when they signed up, provided some questions. So I'm in a very good position that I'm starting with a couple of questions in front of me. What I'm particularly pleased with, I have 4 or 5 questions, and we're not going to be able to go through all of them. Although, again, I'm still open to questions from the audience here right now, is that they actually all emphasize the global aspect. And when I met you as panelists, I did mention, why Toronto, why Bombay, why India, why Canada? And I think we've already kind of got a bit to that answer. It's really, what is your global strategy, even from the very beginning as a company? And that we believe that these 2 countries and cities offer the potential platform, right? So, so if you could just comment a little bit on how a global strategy moves from 2 such very different geographies, and sorry, excuse me, and really how Canada and India are part of even a startup company's global strategy. And I think we'll try and keep this a little bit shorter so we can get through all of these questions. And from my screen, I don't know if you're on everybody's screen, Deb Dot, you're here, so why don't you just start with that point?
Sorry, you're asking me to comment on how the 2 countries can work together? Is that
why a small company at a startup stage would think about both Canada and India? How would that position them to succeed globally?
Right. Yeah, I think the short answer really is the scale up, right? I mean, by definition, a small company is a small company, and therefore it must grow to survive and prosper. And how do you do that? You need customers, right? You need to be able to implement your technology, right, your solution which is acceptable in the marketplace. India is that place, right? There are many, many positives. We don't need to go into that, English language, blah, blah. But basically, it's really scale up. Now, clearly, we have a big southern neighbor called United States, which is a huge scale up opportunity. But the world is beyond, much greater than the United States, clearly. And we know that, right? It's a question of how does one enable such companies and their investors and their advisors and their everything, the board, to say, hey, go to India as well. We're not saying it's either US or India or China. It's really India is one of the 3 largest markets in the world to scale up, and scale up is the name of the game, right? And this is the key headline for everything. You have to scale up.
Okay, so I'm going to turn now to Ajay, and you can comment on that as well, but we have a very specific question, Ajay, which is, would you suggest that companies start first in India and then move towards Canada and North America, or was it better to start in North America and move towards India?
Sure, I'll just add to the previous question, which Devdutt was also answering, and with a very specific example of a Canadian company which came to India through a trade mission. And small company, they've raised about $500,000, a very small team currently catering to a couple of clients in Canada and a couple of them in the US. And they're a fintech in the lending space. But one thing that the founder commented, which kind of resonated a lot, was that, look, Ajay, I'm not looking at finding product market fit to my product in India. I want to understand the broader lending ecosystem in India and identify where I can make those pivots or tweaks which makes me relevant. I haven't spoken to too many tech entrepreneurs from Canada who have, on their first visit itself, identified that India is a place for me to do business rather than me trying to sell my product in India. So he was willing to invest the time, invest resources, put people on the ground to understand the lending ecosystem and find out where technology is a missing piece. And I build for that by making tweaks to what I have as a platform. So that's a very different approach to have. And that's something I found interesting. The second thing is, I mean, for a company, and because here we are talking Canada, India, you're looking at either Indian company building out something and then expanding to Canada, and likewise the other way around. There have been instances of companies that have been built in Canada, but the main market that they're trying to address is India. An example is a company called ICEE. So I'm sure yourself, Terry, and folks at UOT might know Ray Neval, who's currently with Mars. And he built a product which back in the day, I mean, what a Netflix or any of the other OTT platforms is doing today for enabling entertainment on a 2G network. And he built the product in Canada with Canadian resources. And when he was trying to pitch it to investors, he was unable to raise money because the product was something that investors were not able to understand in the North American context. Moved here, he built a team here, raised money locally, and started building the product with many more Indian team members and a lot of context here. So, I mean, you got to be there where your product has an acceptance, where for where your product has been built, and back it with resources, which might be time, money, people, whatever. So there's no but yeah, you need to make that decision. Like, if you're building in India, maybe you build in India first, generate those revenues. Like Devdutt said, for any company to scale up, you first need to have the money, do that, and then look at going global. Or probably if you've identified the international market as the first one to be in, your resources need to be directed in that direction.
Thank you, Ajay. Devashish, I was going to ask you a new question, which is, we have a couple questions that are basically, how does a startup survive? How can you, there's some aspect of post-COVID, but really it's about how as a startup do you produce the kind of company that Wattpad now is? What are the key steps for longevity?
I mean, the answer is still like back to the fundamentals, right? Like having a good founding team that understands the space and has a process figured out where they can continue to create products for user that users still want to use, right? So this being the fundamental understanding, I believe like it doesn't matter which market you tackle, whether the Indian market or the Canadian market. However, like if you have all the ingredients of the talent as well as the capital as well as the knowledge, I think all these three together definitely is a recipe for success, right? But the context of this recipe will change depending on the market and the technology that you're looking to tackle with.
Can I push you a little bit on that? Like, how do you get that good team together. And if you want, I can give you a question that I thought was related, which is how do you keep up on these business trends? So I guess the team is a little bit separate, but I guess you're picking the team that knows how to keep up on the right trends. You know, like I would agree with you, that's a business fundamental, but how do you get to that place where you're secure and you're not just in that kind of idea, hardworking, but not really moving forward towards sustainability as a company?
Sure. I mean, my answer would be a bit biased towards technology products because I believe for different types of products, you have like a different way of tackling it. But for technology products, at least the founding team members, the success rate is much higher if you've already worked with the founding team members. So that not only you have, you know, like an understanding of their skill set, but also an understanding of their attitude and work ethic and how well you gel with them in stressful situations. I think that's something I definitely recommend. Like if there are founders listening, like they should be looking at getting co-founders from their personal network, especially the ones that they have worked with. In terms of, I guess to your question that how does one keep in track the business trends? Is that the right way to put it?
Yeah, like how do you keep on top? Like I think part of having the right directions is going in the direction of the market, right? How do you know where the market's going? Yeah, I mean, there's no one way to look at it, right? You have to be definitely reading news and reading content from the right sources so that you get that understanding. But at the same time, nothing beats talking to a customer or potential customer and trying to get that understanding that whatever solution you're trying to provide for their problem, does it really resonate with them? Do they find value in that, right? So it's a mix of both internal and external measures where you try and keep yourself updated with whatever the industry reports and different news articles talk about that particular segment where you're trying to build a company, as well as I think one definitely needs to do, besides looking at data, one should also look at having the right process to find and talk to your potential customers or existing customers and try and see that how you can make their lives even better with whatever you're providing with them. Thank you very much. We're actually coming to the end of the question and answer session here. So I just wanted to offer each panelist kind of 30 seconds or a minute to what would you like to tell the young potential entrepreneurs before us that you haven't had a chance to already say? And I'll just start with you, Ajay.
Okay, I think because I know that this University of Toronto and SINE initiative is going to pan out as multiple similar masterclasses or forums. I think keep your eyes and ears open, be a part of as many conversations as you can, and try and understand what kind of opportunities exist out there. I guess do not have a very laser focused objective that hey, this is what I do here, this is what works and it should work here. Keep your mind open and yeah, explore and see what works best in best interest of whoever your partner on the other side is. I think that's one way of looking at this.
Thank you very much. Devdutt?
Yeah, I mean, you know, a few sort of buzzwords, you know, to the young people in both in India as well as in Canada who are listening to all this, right? Be curious. Be always curious about what's happening in the world, right? To your point about what's happening in the marketplace, but be always curious about what's going on, not only your area, but also the peripheral areas that may someday be your competition or your partnership potential. Network like hell. I mean, you got to meet a lot of people. As Devashi said, you know, talk to your customers, talk to anybody who's willing to listen to you. And so that always gives you ideas. And who knows when that person may be able to help you or you can help that person. As far as cross-border, so I mean, you know, I'm a prime example amongst many others. This is a great place to live. I've been here for many years, for over 30 years here. And of course, I lived in India as well and love the country too. It's a great place to be here. It's a great place to do business. It's a very welcoming society. It's a place where you can do a lot of business in the US as well. So Silicon Valley is not the only place. This is a fantastic place to establish yourselves and roots. And to the Canadian entrepreneurs and young people, India is a fantastic market. Again, it's a very warm, open society. People are open to innovation. People are highly digitized. I mean, I can go on and on, but do not just think of India as a faraway place. It is not that far away. People are willing to help, and it's a great place for business.
And over to you. Devashish.
Yeah, I think most of my summary points are already covered between Ajay and Devdutt, but I guess one thing that I can probably mention here is while I was in Canada in my early days and like right after college when I worked there, it was, even though I was from India, I didn't really have a lot of understanding of the Indian market. And one thing that really helped me was reaching out to official resources at the High Commission. That is something I did. And like coincidentally, that also led me to come back to India and start my first startup. So like the key takeaway over here is that always like try and figure out, don't get lost and try and figure out the right resource to reach out, and just take that leap of faith and reach out for with any question, and the help is always there, especially like with programs like SINE and U of T collaboration. I believe like the resources are even richer now with a lot of, from what I remember, like in the initial, one of the initial speakers mentioned how the companies that have come out of SINE have been success stories. And I think reaching out to them, reaching out to their learnings is something that the students can definitely benefit from, whoever is looking to start or even expand into other markets.
Thank you very much. And I actually think that that's the perfect ending, despite you saying that everyone else had said everything, to our question and answer session. It's been a great pleasure to hear the insights from 20 billion to true startups to Wattpad, which is somewhere in the million of that journey. And I'd like to thank you very much as I pass back to Ganja to go on with the session.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Terry, for the wonderful session. I think the insights were too good to really have been missed. And I'm so glad the session has got recorded. So I'm sure it will get more, I mean, people who've not been able to attend this also will get a lot of insight. The how part of it was very inspiring. The inputs which came from Devdutt and Ajay in terms of how the entrepreneurs actually can take the opportunity, look at opportunity, was really good. So with this, we almost at the end of the program. So we sincerely hope that all of you have had an awe-inspiring experience listening to all the speakers and are highly motivated to embark into this journey of entrepreneurship through the ICEE program. Last but not the least, I request Dr. Alex Mialdis to share his closing remarks on and set the context for the next steps. Just to give a brief introduction, Dr. Alex Mialdis is an Associate Vice President, International Partnership and a professor in the Department of Occupational Science and Occupational Therapy in the Institute of Biomaterials and Biomedical Engineering at the UOFT, with cross-appointment in the Department of Computer Science. Dr. Mialdis has been conducting research in the field of pervasive computing and intelligence systems in the health for past 15 years, published over 150 journal papers, conference papers, abstracts in this field. He currently holds several major grants from internationally recognized funding agencies to support his work. Dr. Mialdis received a BAsc in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Toronto, MAsc in Biomedical Engineering from the University of Toronto, and a PhD in Bioengineering from the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow, Scotland. So may I invite Dr. Alex to share some closing words and set a context on what next from this event. Thank you so much.
Great. I hope everyone can hear me and see me. Good morning and evening to all of our friends and colleagues. My name is Alex Mialdis, and I have the privilege of serving as the Associate Vice President, International Partnerships at the University of Toronto. And as you heard, where I'm also a professor. I'm thrilled to be here today, also representing leadership across the university, including our president, Dr. Merrick Gertler, who sends his best wishes to all and warm thanks to Dr. Subhashis Chowdhury, Director of IIT Bombay, for his unwavering support and vision of the U of T IITB partnership, and to Ms. Puni Bhatt of SINE for her ongoing collaboration. On behalf of IIT Bombay, the University of Toronto, and SINE, thank you to all who participated in today's joint launch of the Indo-Canadian Entrepreneurship Exchange, or ICEE, our SHARE initiative. When it's safe to do so, which will hopefully be very soon, ICEE will include in-person exchanges in Toronto, Mumbai to support cohorts of budding entrepreneurs to develop business ideas and grow their startups through curated exposure, and access to programs, networks, and potential markets in both countries' entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem. The ICEE program with the U of T, IIT Bombay, and SINE will weave this all together in a way that budding entrepreneurs will be successful and will benefit from all the skills that are being offered. Separately, with the support of Tata Trust, the University of Toronto will also be launching a center in Mumbai, which will include entrepreneurship as a priority focus. This will be critical in all of us moving our mission and our goals forward. I'd like to say a big thank you to today's speakers for their engaging remarks and insights. The quality of the talks and the passion that you've all shown in your remarks is a further testament to your commitment and our commitment towards this important partnership in supporting new and innovative research and development. But most importantly, your commitment in moving research towards practical solutions that meets the needs of India and Canada. I'd also like to wholeheartedly thank the entire team at SINE, IIT Bombay, and the University of Toronto for their extraordinary leadership in mounting this event. So finally, I'd like to thank you all for participating. We hope we will apply for the exchange program and join us at future ICEE events. I wish you all good health and for the safety of you and your loved ones during this difficult time. And we hope to see you very soon. Take care and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alex. So with this, we come to the end of the event. Thank you so much for sparing your time.